Happy Friday. Yes, we've made it to the 29th, the second to last day of this beautiful month. And I don't know about you, but I feel like reflecting and resting, right? It's been a tough week, but let's unwind with a story of heritage and strength. Yep, story of Ruby Bridges by Robert Coles and illustrated by George Ford. Ruby Bridges, just in case you don't know, she helped shape American history. She's still alive. And she helped shape American history when she became the first African American sent to the first grade in an all-white school. You look at her in her briefcase, in her dress, she was about business. Look at all the people behind her. But she persevered at the age of, 7 or 8. This moving picture book captures the courage of a little girl standing alone in the face of racism. Derive inspiration, y'all. Look at her family. Her mother, her father, those who cared about her. Ruby's mother had some words to share. Our Ruby taught us all a lot. She became someone who helped change our country. She was part of history. Just like generals and presidents are part of history, they're leaders, and so was Ruby. She led us away from hate, and she led us nearer to knowing each other, the white folks and the black folks. This was Ruby's mother. Ruby Bridges was born in a small cabin near Tylertown, Mississippi. We were very poor, very, very poor, Ruby said. My daddy worked picking crops. We just barely got by. There were times when we didn't have much to eat. The people who owned the land were bringing in machines to pick the crops. So my daddy lost his job, and that's when we had to move. I remember us leaving. I was 4, I think, so preschool. Very poor. In 1957, the family moved to New Orleans. Ruby's father became a janitor. Her mother took care of the children during the day. After they were tucked in bed, Ruby's mother went to work scrubbing floors in a bank. Sacrifice. Every Sunday, the family went to church. We wanted our children to be near God's Spirit, Ruby's mother said. We wanted them to start feeling close to Him from the very start. Hardworking parents. At that time, black children and white children went to separate schools in New Orleans. The black children were not able to receive the same education as the white children. It wasn't fair, and it was against the nation's law. In 1960, a judge ordered 4 black girls to go to 2 white elementary schools. 3 of the girls were sent to McDonough 19 is the school. 6-year-old Ruby Bridges was sent to first grade in the William France Elementary School. So she didn't even go to kindergarten. Maybe she went somewhere else. But we know that she was very smart, so she tested in. I skipped first grade also. Well, no, not the same as Ruby Bridges, but I think I went from kindergarten to second. The Ruby Bridges sound like she skipped kindergarten and just went to first. I'm not sure, but let's see. Ruby's parents were proud that their daughter had been chosen to take part in an important event in American history. They went to church. Yes. We sat there and prayed to God, Ruby's mother said, that we'd all be strong and we'd have courage and we'd get through any trouble, and Ruby would be a good girl and she'd hold her head up high enough to see who you are. That's right. and be a credit for her own people and a credit to all the American people. We prayed long and we prayed hard. That's why I guess I take it seriously when we see our African American children in the news and they're not exhibiting what's really within us and what was in our past and what was planted within us. Those are lies, and we're just acting out on falsehood. We don't know, or we forgot who we really are and where we come from. I feel like that too. I feel like that. On Ruby's first day, a large crowd of angry white people gathered outside the France Elementary School. The people carried signs that said they didn't want black children in a white school. People called Ruby names. Some wanted to hurt her. The city and state police did not help Ruby. The president of the United States ordered federal marshals to walk with Ruby into the school building. The marshals carried guns. Every day for weeks that turned into months, Ruby experienced that kind of school day. She walked to the France school surrounded by marshals, wearing a clean dress and a bow in her hair and carrying her lunch pail. Ruby walked slowly for the first few blocks. As Ruby approached the school, she saw a crowd of people marching up and down the street. Men and women and children shouted at her. They pushed toward her. The marshals kept them from Ruby by threatening to arrest them. Ruby would hurry through the crowd and not say a word. Can you believe this? Just to get an education. So if we just remind our children what she had to go through, how can we waste time and resources and opportunities when some of us go to very well-resourced schools today? The white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone except for her teacher, Mrs. Henry. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with and learn with, to eat lunch with, none of that. But every day Ruby went into the classroom with a big smile. There you go. Don't let anyone steal your joy, your smile, or your shine. That's right. Ready to get down to the business of learning. Yes. She was polite and she worked well at her desk, Mrs. Henry said. She enjoyed her time there. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. So Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom, an empty building. Sometimes I look at her and wonder, how did she do it? Mrs. Henry, how she went by those mobs and sat here by herself and yet seemed so relaxed and comfortable. Mrs. Henry would question Ruby in order to find out if the girl was really nervous and afraid, even though she seemed so calm and confident. But Ruby kept saying she was doing fine. Yep, her parents instilled that in her. She was a little girl of strength and faith. The teacher decided to wait and see if Ruby would keep on being so relaxed and hopeful. The teacher was more nervous. Or if she'd gradually begin to wear down, or even decide that she no longer wanted to go to school. Not a chance. That's what I'm saying. Then one morning, something happened. Mrs. Henry stood by a window in her classroom, as she usually did, watching Ruby walk toward the school. Suddenly, Ruby stopped right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people. Do you understand how many wanted her to go home? She stood there facing all those men and women. She seemed to be talking to them, but you know what she was doing. 6 years old. Mrs. Henry saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered what Ruby could be saying. The crowd seemed ready to kill her. Look at this. The marshals were frightened. They tried to persuade Ruby to move along, They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. Then Ruby stopped talking and walked into the school. Look at this. Look at this. Her shoulders back, her chin up. This is what, in the face of adversity. When she went into the classroom, Mrs. Henry asked her what happened. Mrs. Henry told Ruby that she'd been watching and that she was surprised when Ruby stopped and talked with the people in the mob. Ruby became irritated. I didn't stop and talk with them, she said. Ruby, I saw you talking, Mrs. Henry said. I saw your lips moving. I wasn't talking, said Ruby. I was praying. I was praying for them. Every morning, Ruby had stopped a few blocks away from school to say a prayer for the people. Love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who despitefully use you. Oh, I'm sorry. This is a storybook. I'm sorry. Ruby had done that for the people who hated her. This morning, she forgot until she was already in the middle of the angry mob. Oh, my goodness. It's inspiring. When school was over for the day, Ruby hurried through the mob as usual. After she walked a few blocks and the crowd was behind her, Ruby said the prayer she repeated twice a day before and after school. Please, God, try to forgive those people. Because even if they say those bad things, they don't know what they're doing. So you could forgive them. Just like you did for those folks a long time ago when they said terrible things about you. Oh my goodness. And the child should lead them. Ah! Later that year, 2 white boys joined Ruby at the Franz Elementary School. Their parents were tired of seeing the boys get into mischief around the house when they could have been in school learning. The mob became very angry when the first white boys went back to school, but those boys were soon joined by other children. We've been sitting back and letting our children get cheated out of an education because some people have tried to take the law into their own hands, one parent said. It's time for us to fight for the side of the law and for our children's right to go to a school and get their education. They all did get their education, Ruby and a growing number of boys and girls who went to school with her. By the time Ruby was in the 2nd grade, the mobs had given up their struggle to scare Ruby and defeat the federal judge's order that New Orleans schools be desegregated so that children of all races might be in the same classroom. Year after year, Ruby went to the Franz school. She graduated from it, then went on to graduate from high school. Ruby Bridges is married to a building contractor and has 4 sons who attend school within New Orleans public school system. Now a successful businesswoman, she has created the Ruby Bridges Educational Foundation for the purpose of increasing parental involvement in schools. For more information, it's P.O. Box 127, the Ruby Bridges Foundation, Winnetka, local 60093. And we know the author, Robert Coles, is a Pulitzer Prize Award winner. He's a research psychiatrist at Harvard University. He lives outside Boston, Massachusetts. And these beautiful illustrations. George Ford has many acclaimed books for children, including Ray Charles and Coretta Scott King Award, and Paul Robeson. He's a winner of the Jane Addams Children's Book Award. He lives with his wife and daughter in Brooklyn, New York. Thank you for this reminder of courage and strength, and let's make a difference and shine our light.